and welcome back to the STYRKA Podcast from STYRKA Fitness. Today we'll keep it simple. We'll compare daily protein intake if you follow the RDA, which is 0.8 gram of protein per kilo body weight and day, or if you double it up as an omnivore and consume 1.6 grams of protein. And what happens if you're lifting weights. It's not the first time we talked about protein at STYRKA Fitness, but why should it be? It's not only an essential nutrient with a huge impact on human health, healthy aging, physical development. It also carries an immense fact-based impact on people's fitness progression. As I recently discussed in another article, protein should actually be the number one food pillar for, like with so many other things that relate to our health and fitness progression, the scientific layers of protein consumption and the consequential benefits of that consumption are multi-layered and complex. So there are very good reasons to continue the fact-based conversation about protein. So today, let's keep it simple and talk about the actual real-life difference between resistance training people who are consuming 0.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight and day, which is the recommended daily protein intake, and a group of participants that consume 1.6. And the way this difference in consumption of protein relates immensely different fact-based strength training, lean muscle mass progression, and health mark. I will focus on one study. It lasted for 8 weeks. It's short, but to be fair, it can be very hard to track and impose a strict food intake and exercise program on a large group of people for a longer period of time. Still, a pity it was only 8 weeks. But it doesn't really matter, because the progression and benefit of lifting weights and eating in a fact-based way will never cease to happen. It will never come to an abrupt halt. It's an endless cycle that repeats every single day for the rest of your life. Yes, before you take up the pitchforks, progression slows down over time. The more advanced we become, the better progression we have already made, the slower the pace of our progression as we go forward. But it never stops. So there are no good scientific reasons for assuming that the fact-based difference between RDA or 1.6 grams of protein for omnivores, and as you know, plant-based people should default to 1.8 instead as their minimum high protein intake. There's no reason to assume that this difference would cease to exist after 1 year, 10 years, or 20 years, or 30 years of eating healthy foods and going to the gym. It's the complete opposite. Yes, as I said, of course, the rate of progression drops off, and we also have the onslaught of time, biological aging. So yes, hypertrophy and nutritional absorption and processing of the foods we eat become a little less effective over time. But that, relatively speaking, makes the habits of fitness and healthy high-protein food habits even more important as we age. So, let's conclude. Progression never comes to a permanent stop. It just slows down, and we also have temporary plateaus. But it never stops. So, men and women can build strength and lean muscle mass well into their 80s. And the importance of doing so only increases with age. We already know this. This is made perfectly clear in a vast amount of studies and millions of people in real life. To make it short and sweet, I'll paraphrase a quote from the study in question. A daily intake of 1.6 grams of protein per kilo body weight and day was superior to RDA, which is a value that's the recommended minimum daily intake for maintaining basic health and functions. Put that in your memory bank, because RDA is the minimum level just for maintaining your needed essential basic health and functions. So 1.6 is superior for promoting greater improvements in skeletal muscle mass and muscle strength, and also health outcomes. That quote will not come as a surprise to anyone who is keeping up with the fabulous world of science-based health, nutrition and fitness. And the health and fitness benefits of eating more protein per day than the recommended daily allowance have been well documented over the years in way more studies than I care to count. So, if you are now thinking, I thought people ate too much in general. Well, the general population in affluent, well-developed nations and communities around the world certainly eats too many calories in junk food in total. And that is one important aspect of a healthy lifestyle that a lot of people need to change. Not only is an excess amount of calories a bad long-term prospect for our health, but lower quality foods and poor nutritional intake lead to health issues all on their own, even if the total amount of calories is in balance. However, overconsumption of energy, calories, and lower quality foods does not change the clear health and fitness benefits of consuming more protein than the recommended daily allowance. It in fact makes the importance of high protein food plans even bigger, due to how higher protein intakes tracks with vastly increased satiety. Vastly increased satiety leads to less total food eaten. So better health outcomes, better fitness outcomes, easier to keep in track with your natural energy balance, which affects diabetes and obesity and everything. So combining a higher protein intake than the RDA with a healthy total nutritional intake that is in balance with our energy expenditure is a fundamental pillar of a much healthier and fitter lifestyle. All while RDA simply put what you need to eat to sustain basic functions and health in body and mind. So it's a good recommendation no matter the nutrient that no one should ever dip below. But when we talk about human health and life, why should anyone be interested in stopping at the lowest barrier? Health and fitness is not just about meeting your RDA on one hand or becoming obese on the other end of the spectrum. There's an entire ocean of amazing health and fitness benefits lurking between these two extremes. So the question you should be asking yourself is, why should humans settle for barely maintaining basic functions and health for however many decades of life that we will end up doing once it's all accounted for? Because we can all do so much better, and in turn end up living a far more capable, fit and healthy life just by making better fact-based food and fitness choices. Food as in daily choices, fitness as in weekly. Because when you think about it, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time, money and energy on eating food every single day of life. So why not make those food choices and meals healthier, nutritionally complete, and better for your lifelong fitness journey? Another summary from the study: both groups increase strength and muscle mass on average, which is a positive. You can build strength and muscle mass even with an RDA intake if you start hitting the gym good enough, often enough, every week. But the higher protein per day group improved way more. And if you're wondering, I'll spoil it for you. They doubled strength progress and they doubled lean muscle mass progression. So sure, if you're going from being completely sedentary to an active gym life, no matter if you're just following RDA or going for what should be the minimum high protein intake, which is 1.6 for omnivores, or if you go even higher, you will increase strength and lean muscle mass, all while improving your health. It's always good training. Protein is always good, even if it's just RDA. But higher protein is better. Fitness is always going to be a great boost to human health and capacity, even when our food and lifestyle choices are not optimal. And RDA, when it comes to protein, is not optimal. And this simple fact was beautifully illustrated by this study, because, as I mentioned, both groups of untrained men improved strength and lean muscle mass in 8 short weeks. So no matter your food choices, going to the gym to lift some weights on a regular weekly basis will always be good for you. Something beats nothing by a huge margin, which I like to tell my clients. But you're still gulping down all those meals every single day, and you're still spending that time in the gym. So why not make better food choices? It's easy, and it doesn't really cost more money to eat better, high protein, high fiber, high satiety foods. When you cut away all the junk, all the pointless, low satiety foods, all the low protein foods, all the low fiber foods, you're left with super healthy food for a very sensible food budget. In fact, making healthy fact-based food choices should almost universally end up saving you money on top of improving your health and fitness progression. Even more crucially, we improve our health and fitness progression directly by making better food choices. But our personal health also improves as we continue our fitness progression. Better fitness carries all by itself with it a whole host of additional health benefits. And one of the many benefits of fitness that our bodies becomes much better in how it responds to the food we eat. The way it processes and absorbs foods and stores it, the hormonal responses, all these things becomes much better relative to a more sedentary lifestyle. So, good healthy fact-based food and fitness choices walk hand in hand, improving body and mind for all of our health span. On top of this, making better food choices daily will make it slightly easier to stay healthy and lean. Sure, it's still very much possible to overconsume the total amount of calories in healthy, high satiety, high protein foods. You can do that if you're stubborn and really want to eat too much. You can do it, but it's much harder to overconsume on total daily energy if you're eating nothing but healthy, nutritional, complete, high protein, high satiety foods. The difference is so big that if you do eat high satiety, high protein foods, it makes the necessity of tracking calories and macronutrients an unnecessary habit for almost everybody, but not everybody, almost. Sticking to a healthy body fat level is nothing but beneficial for our health span. We are all amazing humans, no matter our body fat levels, but a healthy, leaner body fat level is much better for human body and mind. Let's get back to the study. It included 40 healthy, untrained, elderly, ex-military men. They were all aged 55 or more. They trained in the gym for 8 weeks, 3 times per week, and they consumed either 1.6 grams of protein per kilo body weight a day or 0.8, which is RDA. Exercise selection and load looked as follows. They all trained the same way, and they started with 50% of their 1 rep max at the start of the study and progressed over 8 weeks up to 80% of 1 rep max during the course of their 8-week fitness plan. Repetitions per set were kept in the 6 to 12 range, and the exercise selection included leg extensions, leg curls, leg presses, calf raises, chest press, lat pull downs, lateral raise, biceps curl, triceps extensions, crunches, and back extensions. Not bad, not great, but a decent selection. Nothing to complain about. Body composition, muscular strength, power, endurance, and health markers of liver and kidney functions were assessed pre- and post-intervention. And as I quoted earlier, keep in mind that both groups did improve strength and skeletal muscle mass. So it's not 1 or 0. Talking about 2 groups that make good progress, and we're comparing the difference. So we know that regular fitness always works, no matter your age, as long as you maintain those habits. That's the big thing. Maintain it. Do it every week, good enough, and never stop. And we also know, no, you don't have to eat more protein than RDA. you can still improve your fitness levels. That means that high protein is not a necessity. It's just that it's much more beneficial for your health, for your body composition and your fitness progression. As such, the higher protein group improved on average the strength and lean muscle mass in a much better way, and the tested health markers remained healthy in both groups. And this is the cold hard numbers. The high protein group doubled up progression. Boom, short and sweet, double the progression. The higher protein group increased body mass with, on average, by the way, 1.7 kilo, and the RDA group increased their body mass with 0.9 kilo. It's on average, which means some people increased even more and some less. Studies always talks about averages. So it means that as a high protein consumer that lifts weights, you can increase even more in less than 8 weeks. But you can also end up being worse than the average. But the interesting thing is the trajectory, which is why there's a benefit at looking at studies and the average. Measured muscle mass change came out as 1.3 kilos of lean muscle mass for the high protein group and 0.7 for the RDA group. Once again, this gives us a pretty neat effect of the high protein group more or less doubling up on the RDA group's progression. As I said, and I really want you to let it sink in, is that both groups improved, but let it sink in how incredibly beneficial a higher protein intake is, because we're talking about the same training, we're talking about the same time frame, and it's double the progression. Sure, in absolute weights, it's a small difference, but what is interesting is the change of pace across the defined window of time between the two groups. Let's talk about exercises. The chest press. High protein group increased the chest press by 8.2 kilo. And the RDA group increased their chest press with 4.1 kilo. Now, these numbers are not great, but that doesn't matter. Everybody's progression is different. And it's the difference between the two groups that's interesting here, because the only difference is the amount of protein they consume. Leg press, high protein group piled on almost 12 kilo on average, and the RDA group piled on 6 kilos, 6.1 to be exact, on average. The interesting thing to take with you is the higher protein group more or less double the progress of the RDA group in strength and lean muscle mass. And that's the thing we're going to keep on hammering in here, because the only difference is a higher protein intake. And this makes the choice of including more protein in your daily health and fitness journey as easy a choice as including creatine in your daily life should be. Because doing so will provide you with a better lifelong progression from your fitness and health journey, improving the natural steroid-free results in a fact-based, clearly measurable way from the same time and energy that you spend on your health and fitness activities. All from the simple, fact-based, healthy choice of eating a bit more daily protein. Let's talk about health markers. There are no indications whatsoever that a high protein intake, higher protein consumption than the RDA, such as 1.6 or even 2.0 or 2.5, will harm your health long-term speaking. So high protein food plans are not only beneficial for your fitness progression, but they are safe too. They are actually, if we're talking about health markers, fitness and high protein improves health outcomes. So don't be afraid of high protein. On a personal level, what you have to consider is A, your fitness level, B, your actual body weight, C, fat mass, and D, the trajectory of human body weight. People who are sedentary living and still add perpetual body weight on the scale, they are already consuming excess amounts of daily nutrients. So if this is your situation, get rid of the unhealthy and unnecessary food that you're consuming and replace it with healthier food. high protein, high satiety food choices. You can't just keep eating what you're eating if you're already eating too much and pile on even more nutrients. So take a good honest look at how healthy and nutritious the food and beverage you're eating actually are, which we talked about in the previous podcast. Not to mention that if you're very overweight, 1.8 grams of protein per kilo of body weight might be way too much for you in order to continue to lose body fat. This is why obese and overweight people should calculate their approximate protein intake based on their target weight instead of their actual current body weight. But as complicated as all this may sound, if you pay attention to your trajectories in gym, health, body weight and fat mass, how much and what you can eat relative to your activity level soon becomes second nature. And the thing is, there are thousands of people that eat high protein, high satiety foods, and it makes things so easy. It's possible but almost impossible to eat too much food when the food you're eating is high protein and high satiety. A simple help for that is the Hava app, which I have no involvement in at all, but there's a completely free version available, and it's focused on eating high satiety, high protein food. So Google it and take a look at it. My conclusion on this protein plus resistance training study, the big pillar is what you should take with you is that once again, another fact-based study has made it perfectly clear that you can easily build strength and muscle mass as an elderly person, which is great, because fitness and health is not the long-lost domains of 25-year-old you. So keep on tracking for life and build a way healthier and way more capable 75 or 85-year-old you. And this study also makes it clear, crystal clear, that even though 1.6 grams of protein is maybe not necessary enough to maximize it's maybe not necessarily enough to maximize your fitness progression, it will yield vastly better results from your gym activities compared to eating protein according to the RDA. So, as I like to say, something always beats nothing. This will always be true. So you don't have to hit the gym 5 days per week. 2 days or 3 days or 4 days is plenty enough if you compare it to 0 days per week. And likewise, while eating nothing but healthy foods and 1.8 plus grams of protein per kilo of body weight a day will yield the best possible natural results for gym and health. 1.6 is already enough to get you very close to an ideal fitness progression and better health. Let's put this study into its proper fact-based context in the larger body of studies on protein and stuff. 1. Consuming more protein per day in kilo body weight or lean muscle mass or target weight if you're overweight compared to the RDA yields way better strength and hypertrophy results over time. And based on this study, it's almost double the progression. 2. Eating at least 40 grams of protein post-workout increases protein synthesis by roughly 20% compared to consuming 20 grams of protein, resulting in increased recovery, strength and hypertrophy over time. But you can eat way more than 40 grams of protein and it will all be absorbed, it will all get put to good use. So it's very easy to eat more protein. Pregnant women, the elderly and plant-based people should all eat more protein than the recommended 1.6 for omnivores. 4. Excess calories will always be stored as fat even from protein. But protein is the nutrient that the body is the least inclined to store as fat. Plus it's extremely satiating. So the more protein you eat, all of your total nutritional intake, the easier it will become to maintain a healthy body fat percentage. Way easier. 5. If you're dieting, the more protein of your total intake, the easier it is to retain your muscle mass while dieting. So once again, if you want to lose fat, high protein is your number one pillar. 6. Protein is essential for our health, and not just our muscles and strength. From organ health to lean muscle mass, recovery, hair, skin, tendons, and even our brain. Our bodies love protein. 7. Consuming more protein than 2.0 gram per kilo body weight is for most people absurdly excessive with very little health and fitness benefits. But fitness progression is not the only thing that matters. So if you don't want to spend your entire day tracking all macronutrients and obsessing about food, if going higher on your protein intake makes your food habits work, and it provides you with an easy route to better health, fitness, and body composition, then go for it. 8. If you're wondering about how much protein should you eat per meal, well, just divide the total protein intake per day. Let's say that you're eating 1.8 or, for simplicity's sake, 2.0 gram per kilo body weight a day. Let's say that's you. Then you divide that with the total amount of meals you're eating per day. That's all. Thank you for listening. See you next time.